With Wave 6 of the Booster Course Pass now concluded, I wanted to take a quick look back at all the Nitro tracks in this DLC. I'll be ranking them based on my personal opinions. So what is a Nitro track, you might ask? Basically, these are the tracks that were not from a previous Mario Kart title. We were told that the Booster Course Pass would consist of only returning tracks from previous Mario Kart games. However, this obviously wasn't the case. These new tracks were Merry Mountain, Ninja Hideaway, Piranha Plant Cove, Sky High Sundae, Squeaky Clean Sprint, and Yoshi's Island. As we all know, the tracks that came into the Booster Course Pass came from Mario Kart Tour, and some of them received some good visual upgrades, whilst others not so much. Don't get me wrong, I love all of these tracks. They were all a very welcomed addition to the game, especially when we weren't expecting to receive them, but some definitely do stand out more than others. Coming in at 6th place, we've got Piranha Plant Cove. I honestly wanted to put this higher, however, I feel as though a lot of the track feels quite repetitive. Even though you do go in different directions and the laps change, I feel like they don't quite change enough, and it does feel like you're seeing the same things over and over again. I feel like if they had switched things up with the 3rd lap, perhaps you can go through a shipwreck of some kind. It may have brought this higher up on my list. I love the inclusion of the thwomps. The music is very cool, and I love the theming of the track. I love that you're in ruins, and I love that you get to go underwater. However, I feel like sometimes when you are going from above ground to underwater, the jump and the distance to actually make contact with the ground again is quite long, and it feels quite slow. It kind of takes me out of the immersion of the track. It kind of reminds me of an underwater version of Thwomp Ruins, but a downgrade. I just wish it had more quality of life improvements, and it would have definitely been higher up on this list. Coming in 5th place, we've got Sky High Sundae. I love how vibrant this track is. I think the concept is so cool. The fact that you start in a giant freezer and you go around and you can see giant scoops of ice cream and lollipops. I love that there's a helicopter, which is an ice cream cone. I think the theming is so well done. However, there's just a few concerns I have with this track. Firstly, it is basically just like one giant loop, and it does kind of scream Mario Kart Tour just a little bit in terms of the way it looks visually. By that I'm referring to the textures and stuff, and I think this is one that suffered a tiny bit. Another concern I have with this track is that the railings weirdly give you a boost when you go into them. I find that quite odd, considering when going into railings in other tracks would not give you this same effect, and I feel like maybe they should have just not included the railing whatsoever. Also, the way the track is laid out, I feel like it works perfectly for a mobile game, but not so much for an at-home console experience. So for example, when you are driving up off of the biscuits, it feels like you're taking a bit of a leap of faith, and it feels like you're floating in the air for a long time, which kind of breaks the speed on which you drive around this track. With that being said, I still have a very fun time whenever I race on this track. And in 4th place, we have Merry Mountain. I absolutely love the way this track looks. I think the village looks very cozy. I love the lighting. I love that you can go up the train track in the beginning of the course. My only concern with this track is towards the latter end, when you're going down the hill, it does feel quite slow. And I feel like if you're going down a hill, it should feel a bit faster. Granted, they did add a gliding ramp, which appears in the 2nd lap. However, I feel like it should have been there from the 1st lap, as the 1st lap does feel very slow when you're going down that hill. I feel like they could have done a bit more to improve the track, perhaps making us go through some giant presents, or seeing some toys, or driving around some type of Christmas tree with giant decorations, just to make us feel like we're in this giant Christmassy world. However, the track could be more exciting in my opinion, and that is why it was in my 4th place. In 3rd place we have Ninja Hideaway. When I first heard the music for this track, I lost my mind when I played it on the mobile game Mario Kart Tour. I think the music in this track is really upbeat, and that provides a really cool, energetic feeling to when you're racing along this track. I love the theming. It definitely reminds me of some of the levels in Super Mario 3D World. And I love that it's like a multi-story track, meaning you can glide in or drive through higher levels or lower levels of the track. I love that freedom of choice where you can choose where you go. Have you noticed certain garlic and moustache figures throughout the track, such as here, here, and here? with a link to a certain moustached friend, or fiend, should I say. My only dislikes about this track is that there are definitely some really sharp 90-degree turns, especially towards the end. I will say this is another track that kind of looks like a mobile game track. I feel like the textures aren't quite on par with other tracks on this list. It feels slightly rushed, but then again, this was in Wave 1, and as we know, Wave 1 had the infamous Toad Circuit with the bright green grass that had no texture in it at all. We definitely saw some improvement over the course of the 6 waves. Okay, in second place we have Yoshi's Island. This was really hard. I almost put it in first place, but I'm going to stick with second. I'm a really big fan of this track. I love the music, I love the visuals. As a big Yoshi fan, they definitely hit the nail on the head. With all the enemies and the different sections of the track, you definitely feel like you're going around the island. This is one of the few tracks which introduces a mechanic which completely changes up the dynamics. So the only other example would be in Hyrule Circuit. When you hit all of the gravity boost pad things, you unlock the shortcut over the Master Sword. But in this track, if you hit the floating question bubble, you actually open up a shortcut which helps you take a turn a lot quicker, and you go flying through a flower ring just like in the games. And I think that is very cool. This track definitely feels like there was a lot of love and care and effort put into it. It doesn't feel slapped together, and it's definitely one that I find myself constantly going back to. I never get bored of it. And in first place, we have Squeaky Clean Sprint. There is honestly nothing bad I can say about this track. The music alone, I could listen to in my free time. It's so jazzy, it's so cool. The amount of detail in this track, and the fact that we are miniatures and we get to go through this giant bathroom, the idea itself is just something you can't mess up, and it definitely was executed so perfectly. Even just seeing the item boxes going down the drain, and then you get to go down the drain and you see like an old ring, then you pass a giant fan with soap bubbles on the ground, you get to like glide over a toilet, and in the second lap it sprays up water which can take you to a higher level of the track if you'd like to go there. It has so many quirks to it, and there's so many Nintendo references if you were to stop and look throughout. Even the shower curtain with the superstars on them, and the Buzzy Beetle clock, even the mirror on the wall is in the shape of a mushroom. I mean, the level of detail in this track is insane, and you can definitely tell they put a lot of effort into this, and it shows. It's so fun to play on, it's so unique, and I definitely feel like the tracks where you feel small in a large environment are probably some of my favourites, and this one done that so well. Let me know down below what are your favourite Nitro tracks. Thank you so much for watching. I'd really appreciate it if you would please like, comment and subscribe, and I'll see you again soon.